Canon 300D, or Digital Rebel as it is called in America, is a milestone product in digital camera world. It was the first one to break psychological $1,000 price barrier. 6 megapixel interchangeable DSLR at this price point in 2003. Only thing that could get me more excited back then was Christiana Loken magically appearing in my room. And while Christiana is still a hottie 15 years later, Digital Rebel not so much. So let's take a look how bad it is by modern standards, and later I'll show you some images taken recently. To make this camera, Canon stripped more expensive model, 10D. Sensor and electronics were the same, but 300D got plastic body with less controls and some of the features removed or disabled. Body materials are really low-end by modern standards, but it is surprisingly good after all this time. It has usual wear and tear marks. Grip is peeling away and connector cover is now wireless. Bottom of the mirror frame is partially melted, as is the case with some plastic around focusing sensor. I must have left it in the sun without the lens cap on the lens at one point. I had no idea about that, I noticed it just now when I was making this video. It still focuses just fine though. Also, I had to disassemble most of the camera at one point to fix guiding pin on the sub mirror, which failed on pretty much all of these cameras at one point. To make it cheaper than the 10D model, Canon used plastic instead of metal guiding pin. Cheap bastards. It was so common problem, there were more than a few tutorials on the internet on how to fix it. Of course, I followed the one which doesn't mention that 300-volt flash capacitor keeps the charge even with the battery removed, and that we should avoid touching the contacts. Well, after it got me electrocuted, I for sure learned that lesson. As for some of the features, Canon was equally protective of its higher-end stuff back in 2003 as it is today. You think 6D Mark II for not having 4K video is a problem? Try this camera instead. 300D doesn't have selectable light metering modes, it measures entire scene always. Focusing was locked in AI focus mode, which means camera decided by itself if it will or will not track moving subjects. Luckily, maybe a year after the camera was introduced, some Russian dude managed to hack firmware and unlock some of the features from 10D, which made 300D bearable to use. LCD is tiny, but all of them were back then. What makes it especially irritating to use are absolutely terrible viewing angles. They are actually so bad that if you view the LCD in vertical position, your left and right eye will see different contrast of the same image, making it a nightmare to judge exposure. Optical viewfinder is also dreadful, tiny and dark. But hold on, I saved the worst for the end. Continuous shooting is possible at 3 frames per second and the buffer can hold only 4 images. If you shoot JPEG, it takes between 15 to 20 seconds to clear the buffer, but if you shoot RAW like what you see right now, buffer clearing time is ridiculous at around 30 to 40 seconds. 4 images have altogether around 30 megabytes of data, what means 300D is capable of a staggering 800 kilobyte per second write speed. Even when shooting a single raw image, it takes around 7 to 8 seconds to write it down. Around 3 seconds is what is needed to enter playback, and it takes around 2.5 seconds to display next or previous image. Oh, and camera startup time is around 2 or 3 seconds. Not having a USB 2.0 card reader was a self-suicide, as 300D has USB 1.1 connector and averages around 3 MB per second transfer speed. As soon as you make peace with 15-year-old sensor limitations, results will be surprisingly good. High ISO tops out at 1600, shadow recovery is not great, and of course there are only 6 megapixels to start with. That means you need to frame it just right, as there is no room for cropping. But beside that, images are quite good. Of course, I was shooting RAW only, but it should be done on any camera to maximize image quality either way. Colors sometimes require a bit more work to get them just right, but I've seen way worse from more recent sensors. In fact, if I had no choice, I could live with this image quality even today. You may have noticed I used only modern lenses, 24mm pancake, 10-18 and 55-250mm STM, which are made for modern 24MP sensors. 15 years ago, lenses as good as these at such low price point simply did not exist. This only proves how much of an impact a good lens can have, and it is almost always better to spend extra money on the lenses than on the latest camera body. My final judgment is that while image quality is rather good even by modern standards, usability is ruined by incredibly slow operation. I lost so much of my life staring at that busy message on the LCD, which I will never get back. Luckily, days when cameras such as this were all that was available at acceptable price are long gone. Actually, I think everyone should have one of these around and use it once a year just to remind yourself how lucky we are with modern gear. It is easy to forget that. That's all for this video. If you want to support my channel, like this video, subscribe and use Amazon affiliate links in the description when you buy something. Thanks for watching.